Hey everyone, I'm Colette. Welcome to my channel Witchways, and today I'm here to share some tips and some thoughts for beginner witches. I hope you enjoy. And I am also going to do a Samhain Q&A. Send me your questions, beginner to advanced, about Samhain and witchy things that happen around that time of year. And I want to say you can put it in the comments, or you can put it on my community post where I asked about it. And not too long after I started this channel, when I was just a baby beginner YouTuber, I made a video about tips for beginner witches, and I still really love that video and the information in it, even though I was a beginner YouTuber, but I wanted to post some fresh thoughts today for you all. One of the hardest things for me when I first started working as a witch, these many years ago, was figuring out how to end, activate, or culminate a spell. I'd set up the altar, I'd have it exactly the way I wanted it, I would feel the magical energy rise, and then I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'd just kind of wander around wondering. So I have done a whole video on many different ways to activate, culminate, or end a spell, but I want to share with you 3 methods that I use most frequently. You can light a candle to activate your spell. That signals the start of the magic being released and working, and when it burns all the way out, it's done. That's kind of the easiest way. You can also chant your intentions several times until you feel complete with it, and then end with a phrase like, "so it is." That one's a little bit more intermediate because you have to have a sense energetically of when things are done, but it's not beyond a beginner to do it. You can also gather energy with your hands, with your voice, and raise it up, and then just push that energy into your altar, your spell plate, your spell tray, your candle, and out into the sky, and again end with a phrase like, "so it is." Pull your hands out of the energy. And you've probably heard other people say this, but you don't need to spend a lot of money to be a witch. Your ancestors likely worked with found objects from nature, what they had around their homes, and the energy of the land itself. I use wine glasses, for example, for offering glasses and chalices, and the one official chalice I have was just a really nice goblet that was made out of stone that was passed down from an elder in my style of magic. When I started, I worked almost entirely with my own energy, my voice, herbs, rocks, and found objects. I love crystals, but for me, picking up a rock that calls to me when I'm out in the wild somewhere, or even walking down the street, connects me more to the land itself and the local spirits. Every so often I'll make crystal water from the crystals that I already have, but I don't usually buy new ones anymore. And it's fine if you are called to crystals and you work with them a lot. Use them if you're called to, or not, but you don't need to do it. And the same goes for tarot decks. When I started working with tarot, again, many decades ago, I only had one deck, and everybody I knew only had one deck. Now, obviously, if you're a professional tarot reader or work with that in some capacity in your online presence, you're going to have a lot of tarot decks, and that is 100% fine. But again, use more if you're called to it, or you like collecting them, or that's your topic of interest, but you don't have to have a lot of them. There's a lot of styles and traditions of witchcraft out there. Some of them have rules, some of them don't, especially the more formal and ceremonial traditions are likely to have rules. But as a beginner, you don't have to follow those rules unless you're being initiated into one of those styles of tradition. So focus on what works for you and notice what you're drawn to. Don't let other people tell you what you should or should be doing. Now, okay, at the same time, some practices in witchcraft are riskier and call for certain skills, so it makes sense to go slow and get to know things gradually. So for example, at our school's Samhain ritual, I prefer to let a graduate lead the crossing over of the dead. It can sometimes be tricky, and not everyone can do that easily without a lot of drain on their energy. But everyone does get a chance to watch, support, help, and learn. And no, you don't have to form a coven or work with other people if you don't want to. A lot of witchcraft is really about developing your own sense of timing, pace, your own inner knowing, and discovering what works for you and how other spirits come to you or let you know they're around. Having said that, again, working with others can be really valuable. You can share skills, you can push each other to learn new things, but solitary work is also very powerful. You don't have to work with any particular spirit. You can choose which, if any, you are drawn to. A good starting place for beginners, and I've said this many times, is to start with animals, plants, trees, and ancestors, maybe rocks if you can sense their energy, and making simple offerings to them over time and just stopping and listening and feeling their energy after you've made the offering will teach you a lot about the ways they work and what they feel like. For me, witchcraft is a very spiritual practice, but that does not have to be true for you. Witchcraft works whether or not it's part of a spiritual tradition or a spiritual practice for you. So check it out for yourself, see what happens. Don't rush into deciding on particular pantheons or beliefs about the spirit world. We're all very enculturated to believe certain things about the spirit world. Give yourself some time to shed some of those old beliefs before you form your own opinions. Just stay open and curious. And just because a deity shows up once doesn't mean that you're bound to it or you have to dedicate to them, even if it's a very meaningful interaction. Now, of course, make note of that. See if it happens again. If someone does show up, make sure you keep it reciprocal. If a spirit helps you, give it an offering. I've probably said this in like 25% of my videos, but keep a record. Write everything down. Write down your spells, your dreams, potential signs, experiences, even if you don't have a clue what they mean. Over time, this can become your personal grimoire, book of shadows, and looking back at it, sometimes you'll be able to figure out what something means as more information comes in, and then you can have that aha moment if you have a record. And sometimes that can be years later. People have different beliefs about this next tip. Generally speaking, I believe, and many other witches do as well, that magic has an energetic cost, and that cost has to come from somewhere. So that could be from your energy, which will be fine once you get a little magical muscle. But if you're someone who's easily fatigued, chronically ill, or you're just starting out, adding herbs and other objects can really help carry that energetic load and give some energy for that spell to draw on, as well as boost the spell if you're not sure what you're doing yet. Choose herbs or objects that align with your intention, speak to them and tell them what you're asking for and thank them. And I want to be really clear, I'm not fear-mongering with this next tip. I want to say though that some witchcraft practices do carry risks, especially the more advanced ones. So start simple and learn as you go. I am a big proponent of making mistakes and learning from them. I think that's fine. You're not always going to get it right. And one of the things that helps with this is learning some basic clearing, cleaning, and spiritual hygiene techniques. I have videos on this. A lot of people have videos on this. It can be as simple as taking a shower and clearing energy off of you. If you know how to do a spell, you need to know how to undo it in case it goes awry. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it can, and you might want to undo it. And anytime something feels wrong or an unwanted spirit shows up, stop, immediately clear, and close the energy down. Put up a little more protection. I do have a video on this as well, and I'm going to link all these videos I'm talking about in the description. Another thing that I think is really important is to read any spell that you're going to carry out very carefully several times, especially if it's from someone else, and make sure that you're on board and that it aligns with you, your beliefs, and what you feel comfortable doing. Follow your intuition and do what interests you instead of what you feel like you should be doing as a witch. That curiosity could be something you're going to specialize in later, or it could be a magical talent trying to surface. You don't ever have to label yourself as a particular type of witch. There are some benefits in doing that, but you don't have to. There's no one size fits all for witchcraft. There's no one style or tradition that's going to work for everyone. Learn enough about yourself to recognize when reluctance to doing something is just basic human inertia, or whether it's actually something that subconsciously your intuition is trying to tell you is not quite right for you. Witchcraft is a skill that develops over time. No matter how often you do it, it still takes time to integrate and learn. However, having said that, I will say that the more frequently you practice will increase your abilities faster. But everyone's life looks really different in terms of free time, health, and energy. So just be aware that consistently practicing matters more than how frequently. One of the most important things about witchcraft is that in order to be a witch, you actually have to do the spell or do something, not just read about it. I feel like both things are important, especially as a witchcraft teacher. I think having some knowledge can be really important, but you'll learn a lot more from doing. That doesn't mean it has to be a big, complex ritual that takes hours. You can keep it simple. You can start with just lighting a candle at the full or the dark moon or on any of the sacred holidays. Make a simple offering to a spirit or the earth, or just build a seasonal altar. And doing these really small things will build your magical muscle over time. And yes, magical muscle is actually a thing. So add more to your practice as you feel called and as you have the time and energy. Read widely, research, learn, but don't assume that everything you find out there is right for you. There's a lot of crap right now because witchcraft is super popular. Publishers are sort of churning out books right and left. If something doesn't resonate for you, set it aside, come back to it later. Maybe it'll resonate then, maybe it won't. I do hear a lot of witches say that it's important to corroborate information about witchcraft by seeing it repeated elsewhere. I have a small problem with that. Often I find that once someone publishes something, it just gets repeated ad nauseum, whether or not it's true. Now, in general, I think this is a really good idea for beginner witches, but for me as a witchcraft teacher, one of the things that I think is super important is that we develop modern witchcraft by sharing our personal experiences, our unverified or verified personal gnosis, things that we've learned that may not be in books or may not be out there. Again, just because someone's experienced, even if they have a lot of experience, doesn't mean that it's right for you. So take everything with a grain of salt. Okay, everyone, I know that many of the witches who follow me here are intermediate witches. So if any of you have tips, or if you're a beginner and you have tips that have helped you, please drop them in the comments. I am always adding articles on beginner skills for witches in my blog, which is on my website, and I do also share tips in my newsletter. So I'll put links to both of those in the description. You can also find me on Patreon or join in on one of my workshops. And I promise my fall workshops are going to go up on my website really soon if you've been waiting. So until next time, stay safe, and be well.